We left off our discussion as they're putting our little shrink image PNG into practice here, shrinking down the uploaded image size down to something more manageable, right? Using our Skia Sharp. Okay, well, that was good, but we discussed at the end of it that sometimes we want to save both a full size or large size version of the image as well as a small thumbnail one, right? So that kind of gets us into our next topic. And so here I've just reworked this a little bit in Blackboard, but it also gives us a chance to talk about probably the last relationship that we're going to introduce in the course this term, at least, right? So before I get into the details of that, what we're looking at is possibly um, taking advantage of a situation where there are multiple relationships, more than one relationship between two entities. So I'm going to come back to our good old PowerPoint on plain old CLR object relationships, right? So remember, we've gone through this for two different implementations of one-to-many, two different arrangements for many-to-many, two different styles of writing one-to-one, and so on. So we've done quite a bit of work in here, and we've been adding more and more to this PowerPoint as we go along. So here we go. More than one relationship, right? Sometimes there are multiple ways the two entities relate to each other. And that introduces something new that we have to deal with, right? Now, just a note here, you can be talking about one-to-one or one-to-many relationships here, right? Multiple of each type. We don't get into many-to-many in this situation because we're only talking about two entities being involved. So that kind of rules out many-to-many, right? But basically what we have then is more than one foreign key relating back to the same entity, right? So we have to clarify for entity framework core how the relationships work, and we can use the inverse property annotation to do so, right? The inverse property base says, okay, this is the property I'm referring to when there's more than one that looks the same, right? If we don't do that, we'll get errors and we won't be able to make migrations and so on and so forth. Okay. So as an example, now a familiar scenario, we often talk about sports. It's a good database design to use things like, teams and players. It's a classic example of a one-to-many. A team's got many players of players on one team, right? Okay, let's think about team and game. Okay, in that case, it's not quite so straightforward. Sure, a team plays many games, but a game involves two teams. Two teams. So that has implications, right? So there are two different ways that team can relate to game. Okay, we are talking about one to many for the two relationships, but there are two. So often what is typically done is we'll have a home team and an away team, right? So a team might be related to a game by being either the home team or the away team. So what does that mean in terms of the design of our model classes? Well, the game, okay, the dependent entity will have two foreign key properties of type team. So typically we might call them then home team and away team, but they're both teams, right? And then back in the principal entity, the team will have two I collections of games, right? So we'll probably call them home games and away games. Well, it sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Right? But we have to clarify it a little bit further with some annotations to help Entity Framework Core really understand what we're getting at here. Naming conventions don't cover it completely at all, right? So this is how the classes might look like. Now, just before I go on, obviously there would be additional properties here. I threw in name just because, you got to have a name in a team. But other than that, these are mostly just the navigation properties. Okay, I might as well get the other one up as well. So here they are. The principal team relates to game in two different ways, right? So what we have inside team is an I collection of game objects called home games, as well as an I collection of game objects we'll call away games, right? So you can see how that will work in our link queries. Now the dependent entity game, it will have its own integer identity primary key, but for the two foreign keys then, um, right, it has two different public team objects, a home team and an away team. And then to help out clarifying the actual integer IDs that correspond to those, we'll use the foreign key annotation, right? To specify that this is the foreign key for the object stored inside game called away team or the one called home team, right? And that works straightforward there in terms of the game. Now, going back to the team, you see that how we identified each eye collection, that the inverse property, the property relates to in the game is home team or away team, right? For the home games and away games eye collections or collections. So that's what we have to do, and that allows us to have multiple relationships with. It's surprising how often this does come up in the real world. Just a note there. So these are two one-to-many relationships, right? Because a team will be play many home games and probably many away games, right? And so on and so forth. Just a note there that this can be done with one-to-one instead of one-to-many relationships. But in that case, the instead of an eye collection in the principal entity, it would just be a single object, right? And then the foreign key integers on the dependent side would have to be nullable ints. Okay, they don't have to be nullable when we're dealing with a many, one-to-many, but they do if we're doing one-to-one. All right, so that kind of introduces the concept of multiple relationships and how we handle it with our properties. So let's get back to our example. So what we want to do then is, we're going to, in particular, look at having two copies of the same image. Now, there is more than one way to do this, and you can do it without involving multiple relationships if you so desire, because the way we have our classes set up right now can be made to work just the way it is, right? But, it's another, perhaps, in my opinion, a preferable way to implement this approach is to use multiple relationships with two different one-to-one relationships, holding the two different byte arrays of the image inside of one entity itself. Okay, so I have a copy paste file here. By the way, that's just the team and game classes there. If you want to play around with them yourself, feel free. Okay, so here's our copy paste file. So you notice I've got two options here. Option one doesn't involve that new multi-relationship approach. This basically, I'm not going to implement it. You can do this yourself. We're going to skip on to number two, but I'll just talk about it quickly. Remember we had patient photo was a class that we added into our model classes, right? And it inherited from uploaded file. Well, this is exactly the same. We're just going to call it patient thumbnail. So we'll make a second copy. So we have patient photo and patient thumbnail, right? So inside of patient, we would add a second object here of type patient thumbnail. So we would have both a patient photo and a patient thumbnail, right? To keep the full size and the shrunk down thumbnail version, right? And basically what we would do in our add picture is we just go through, okay, once we get the data uploaded, is we'll make two objects, one of patient photo and one of patient thumbnail, right? And then when we get the byte array by doing our memory stream 2 array, we save that, the full size version, into our patient photo, and then the patient thumbnail, the content will come when we take the same data and shrink it down with our little utility, right? Of course, setting the MIME type to PNG because that's what it always is. And then in the end, you see, what we do is we save both, right? We assign the patient photo and the patient thumbnail as two separate properties of patient. You can go on, complete this little demo, and it works, right? It does work. But there's two reasons why I would consider option two to be a better option. For one thing, now we're piling everything. All the uploaded blobs are all in the same pile, so to speak, inside the database. All the Word documents and PDFs and spreadsheets and all the images, large and small sizes and everything, right? So we're adding more and more of these nullable foreign keys, which isn't really a bad thing in and of itself. But because photographs or images are kind of unique in how we deal with them and handle them, I kind of like the idea of keeping them in a separate pile from all the other types of documents. That's one reason. Also, I like to think about it in terms of a single image, right? Just the image itself will have two byte arrays, one for the full-size image and one for the thumbnail. Okay? I think it's just a nicer way to organize it. So you don't have two different, patient photo, patient thumbnail. We just have one image, right? And it contains both byte arrays. But of course, we don't want to actually contain them in because we want to use that one-to-one so we can offload them and just include whichever byte array we actually want for the different sizes of the image. Okay? And of course, each byte array might have a different MIME type. So I'm going to store the MIME type. That's a change from our earlier approach into the same class where the byte array itself is stored. In hindsight, I probably could have and should have done that from the very beginning when I started the file uploads, but it doesn't hurt to make the change now. Okay, now we will need to use that annotation to clarify the models as we go along, right? That inverse property that we were just talking about. By the way, there's a little reference here you can look up on inverse property data annotation and some of the uses of it inside code first. There's lots of other ones too. This is just a decent one I found out there. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to add two separate classes. So we'll start storing our images in a separate pile of data in our database from all the other uploaded files. So I'm just going to, well, we'll just close some of this for now because we'll be coming back to it, but that's okay. Let's come over to models then, right? I've got that same copy paste file open in my own notepad on the other screen. So you can use the web version. So I will add our two new classes here, right? My photo content and my uploaded photo, okay, as opposed to file content and uploaded file. Now, of course, the way that we're set up right now, you would be allowed to upload images just as regular documents as well. But, you know, when a special case when we're actually deliberately uploading an image, usually to show on the screen, then this would be the case there. So we have our two classes, right? So let me just get my properties in here. I'm just going to bring them all in at once, and we can talk about them. Of course, I'll have some blood on the screen here in a moment, just because I need my usings for data models and, sorry, data annotations and data annotation schema, right? I'll need both to get that foreign key annotation. And coming back to the uploaded photo, it'll be the same kind of situation. I have to add our two usings for data annotations, and the inverse property as well lives in data annotation schema. Okay, so you see it's similar to our team and game that we were talking about a minute ago. So this is the principle, right? Notice we initialize the two child objects here that are contained inside it. Now, these are one-to-one though, right? We'll only have one photo content for the full-size image and one for the thumbnail size. Okay, it's not a one-to-many, but that's okay. This works just fine, right? So we do initialize those so we don't get a null reference exception when we go to work with them when we actually instantiate an uploaded photo object. And I'm just going to store the file name in here. Probably don't even use the file name with images very much, but not bad thing to have it there anyway. Okay, so on the dependent side, okay, here are my foreign keys. I've got two uploaded photo objects, okay. One I'll call photo full for full size and photo thumb for thumbnail, right? And just with the integers, now remember, these have to be nullable in order to make this work with a one-to-one, okay, with having two one-to-one relationships. All right, and I'll store the MIME type here along with the byte array. That's it. Okay, so I have those two in here. So now what I'm going to do, well, we need to make a DB set, right? So let's come to our context. Pardon me. And I'll just add the DB set here for our uploaded photo. I don't really need one for the dependent entity, right? The photo content, it's not really required. So I'll just have the uploaded photo. And now I already had, remember from earlier, okay, we had in the patient class, oh, sorry, we'll have to get to that in a second, but remember we have our patient photo class, right? In our previous incarnation of this, we inherited from uploaded file, but I just want to change that so now it inherits from uploaded photo, right? So we'll move all the photographs out of the regular file pile and put them into our new pile of photographs. Okay, but otherwise this stays the same. So actually I don't have to go into the patient class after all because it has an object of type patient photo. It's just that patient photo is now changed, right? So that's good. Now, if we do a build right now, we're going to get some build errors. But before I go on and fix all those, let me also mention that back in the context, maybe I should point out this. These are nullable ints, right? So remember we had this discussion before. With a nullable foreign key, we automatically restrict cascade delete, which in many cases is what we want, but not in this case, right? I want to be able to delete an uploaded photo and have it actually remove the related dependent objects, okay, the photo content full and the photo content thumb, right? So I have to, because these are nullable ints, I have to actually come into our context here, into the Fluent API, right, in the on model creating then, expand that whole region, and I have to add a bit more in terms of cascade delete, okay? So I have to add this so that we do get cascade delete, because otherwise I won't, right? Maybe we'll just put it right up here. There we go. So we do get cascade delete. So I have the two. I have uploaded photo relating to photo content. Which one? The photo content full. And then the same thing for photo content thumb, right? And in both cases, I'm setting the delete behavior to cascade. So that way otherwise, if I don't do this, I won't go to delete a picture I uploaded and I'll be told I can't because I'd have to come in and actually delete this photo content entity first, which is not what I want to do. All right, so that's good. Now we're ready to go. So I'll have to see all my build errors because there's going to be quite a few. Build failed. Well, that's great that it tells me that, but I have to do a build again to see all the errors. Okay, lots of them. Now these first ones here are all to do with the .include statements referring to file content, right? So right now we're including patient photo, then including file content, okay? So we now have two choices though. We might want to include, so let me just copy that for a second. We might want to include photo content full or photo content thumb. So it depends where we are, right, inside the controller here. Now I can see that I'm inside of the index action. So on the index, I'm going to want to show the thumbnail images. So I'll set it to photo content thumb, right? Now most of these others, I'm going to want to set to photo content full, right? In the other spots in the controller here, like the details, edit, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't take too long to do each of these. Photo content full, and so on, right? There's only a few of them. Now here, the MIME type, right? Of course, now that's moved. It's no longer in the principal entity. It's in the dependent entity. So I have to throw that in there as well. So we fix that. And here we are in, this is details. Okay, I thought I did that one, but obviously I didn't. Photo content full. Okay, so that's some of them. Now, it stopped. It didn't even go on to the views yet. So let's do another build. And we see even more errors, right? But these are mostly related to the details, the edit, and the index views over here, right? So if I bring up the index view, okay, see what I want to do is I want to change patient photo file content. So I can do a Control H here and replace that with thumb, right? In the current document, okay? So only on the index view I want to use the thumbnail, right? So I'll just do a search and replace here. No, there's only two occurrences, but there you go. All right, now that doesn't quite fix the MIME errors because I have to add photo content thumb since I have it here. Steal it from anywhere, right? Put that in here as well with a dot, and same because we moved the MIME type down in the hierarchy. Okay, so I think that gets rid of all the red underlining here on the actual index view, right? So let's go on now to the edit view. Now here it's a little different because I want to replace patient photo. Well, what do I get up here? Oh, no, I don't want to just say file content because there might be other references. So I'm going to go patient photo file content and replace that with patient photo file content full. And you know what? I could do this on throughout the project. Bada bing, bada boom. Go ahead. Yeah, 4 occurrences. Okay. And then, right, I can replace patient photo dot mime type. Oh, I need a capital T there. With photo content full dot mime type. Oh, got an extra dot. Get rid of that. And there we go. And there were 4 occurrences of that. All right, so let me just try a build again. All right, so we succeeded this time. So we fixed all the spots where the changes we made to our classes impacted how we have to put our code together here. But let me emphasize again, so here on edit and on delete, see we're working with the full size version, right? Whereas over here on the index, we're working with the thumbnail size version. And of course, we should just triple check that inside of our controller we have it correctly, right? So coming up to the top, okay, here at the index, notice we're getting the thumbnail size content when we build our patient photo, right? So we include the thumbnail byte array and MIME, right? And in details, we're getting the full. Down in edit, we're getting the full in both the get and the post. Looks good. So we should be good that way. All right. So now we got rid of our build errors. I can finally make a new migration, right? So let's come over here. We'll delete our medical office migrations. We'll delete our database. And we'll recreate the migration using our common commands so I don't have to remember this and type it every time. Tools, NuGet Package Manager, console. And hopefully, well, I already checked for build errors, so I should be good. And you see, we didn't get any errors here in doing the scaffolding because we did our navigation properties and their annotations properly. So let's just have a look at these tables. Okay, I'm scrolling down quickly. I know, don't get dizzy. I'm just looking for the key ones. Okay, just notice we haven't, well, actually, we did make a little change to uploaded files. Remember, we had a third nullable foreign key in here before for the patient photo underscore patient ID, right? Well, that's gone now because we aren't putting the photographs in the same uploaded files table anymore, right? Here we have uploaded photos. It has the file name, our discriminator, because of course, you know, we have it for patient photos, but maybe on we might have doctor photos or things like that as well. So we have a discriminator just in case. And other than that, it's basically straightforward. Of course, we do have cascade delete. So if we delete a patient, okay, then we delete the patient photo and away we go. All right, so here's our new file content. Oh, sorry, that didn't change. Photo content, right? So here we have the byte array and the MIME type, okay? And look at that. There's our photo full ID and our photo thumb ID, right? So those are those nullable foreign keys. And because we did that little bit of work in the Fluent API, we did force it to set up cascade delete, right? Which is necessary. Otherwise, we can't delete an actual uploaded photo. And that should take care of it. So we should be good. If I want, I could just do the update database. It'll do it again for me later on, but heck, why not, right? All right. Okay, so we're good. We're ready to go on. Now, we aren't quite finished yet, though, because we have to make some changes to how we get the data in, right? Mostly that happens inside the controller. So I'm going to clean up the screen here. I'll close all tabs. I should have left open the patient controller, but that's okay. I'll get it now. Let me just shrink everything down. MO, Control MO, and here's our add picture. So we'll have to make some changes inside here, right, for our two copies, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just replace the one if inside here. As long as we have an image, we'll put our new code in, and I'll just quickly talk about it. So we'll make a new patient photo object. So remember that inherits now from uploaded photo. So we just set the file name, right? Everything else we'll leave till later. So we grab our memory stream, right? We do the to array, and that gives us our byte array for the full size image. So we assign that to the photo content full.content, right? And the MIME type we grab from the information that was uploaded, right? Because it might have been a JPEG or anything else. We might as well keep track that the full size image is that particular type. Okay, then notice we're actually taking, why do the to array a second time? I already have it in this object in memory, right? So I'm gonna, when I call shrink image PNG, I can just pass that. I'm just taking the default height and width that the shrink image is set to, and that's fine with me. I think it's 100 and 120 for the height and width. If I wanted to, I could change it by passing those parameters, right? I could just come in here and put in other parameters, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. Okay, and of course, good thing to set the MIME type of this returned data to image PNG, right? Because that's exactly what it does. It gives me a PNG file. And now we have both, okay, of the photo content full and photo content thumb, all with appropriate values, and they're all inside of our patient photo. So all we have to do is say patient.patientPhoto, right, and assign the object there. And of course, when it does the save hierarchically, it'll do the big transaction and save the whole kit and caboodle together. So that's it. So I don't know. You could make it work just using our file upload, right, class and so on. But I think that this is a better way to do it, and especially how up, in our controllers, we can just simply say, give me the. Oh, sorry. Where am I after? I wanted index. There we are. Right. We can just say, give me the patient photo, but then include. Do I want the thumbnail or the full version, right? And I think that's an elegant way to do it. So let's just make sure it works. Okay, so coming to patients, I'll just come in here. I'll pick my nice big size pictures, my huge pictures that I downloaded. And one more person. Oh, I meant to go next over here, right? And edit. Okay, so I have it all. So you see how fast it is because we're just showing thumbnails, right? So these are the actual sizes of the thumbnails. We're not actually shrinking them down in any way. So that's good. So we're getting very good performance now, right? But of course, if I go to edit, then I get, this is constrained, I think, to 500 wide, something like that. But if I go to details, I've removed all the restrictions of size except for it's just the container itself that holds the entire page. So we have the bigger version here. So you can see we still have the full size version available to show in whatever size we like. But back here where we're using the little thumbnails, hey, that's as big as it gets, and that's much more efficient. So that kind of wraps up our discussion, but I hope you'll find that that discussion of multiple relationships interesting, because that definitely comes up in the real world, right? Where you have the uploaded file and the uploaded photo, and how we have to use the inverse property, right, to relate which of the foreign keys is the one we are talking about here. Okay,